now we're God's mountain. Exodus 15:17. You will bring them and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance, the place, O Lord, which you have made for your dwelling, the sanctuary, O Lord, which your hands have made and established. So he has established and made us to be his dwelling and to be a mountain. Psalm 2:6. As for me, I have installed my king upon Zion, my holy mountain. This is talking about Jesus, but also can be talking about the sons of God who are installed on mountains to rule. So now the mountain is going to be expressed in terms of rulership, kingship, authority. His throne is on that mountain. So our spirit is a mountain. It's symbolic of the authority of where God's throne and dwelling place are. Our spirit is a place of governmental authority, in which that government is supposed to be expressed through our soul and our body to the world, to bring the kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. God's kingdom resides within our spirit. God has called us to rule as his sons. He's called us to rule. Therefore, you're a mountain. You're a place of authority. When God dwells on your mountain, you reflect the heavenly realms. And this is why the symbol of mountains is so important, because when we start to engage in the realms of heaven, we'll see that God patterns everything on mountains, and he has given us mountains, like his mountain, to govern and rule. We have thrones in heaven on those mountains. Now we know that we're seated in heavenly places. This is where we're seated, on thrones of government. The intimacy of relationship that we're developing can't stop there. It must go on to take responsibility of sonship to rule. It's always been God's intention that we would bring his government and establish his rule to the whole of the created order. Each of us has a position of authority. Matthew 4:8, this was when Jesus was being tempted in the wilderness, says the devil took him to a very high mountain. Now, it wasn't talking about Mount Everest, which is the highest physical mountain on earth. It was talking about a higher mountain in the realms of the spirit, and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. Because if he took him to Mount Everest, he wouldn't have seen all the kingdoms of the world, because basically you only see as far as the horizon. But in the realms of heaven, you can see, because it's a different time-space dimension. And he showed him all those kingdoms and their glory. In other words, what they were to represent in representing God. And he was shown, actually, all the governmental spheres, including yours and mine. And he was offered them if he would take an illegitimate route to them. But of course, he didn't. So each of us have 7 mountains or governmental spheres under our positional seat of government in the heavenly kingdom of God. Now, I'm introducing this as a concept now, because this is where we're going ultimately, once we understand and engage in the mountain in our own life. Those mountain ranges in the realms of heaven are patterned after God's mountain. The 7 mountains represent those redemptive governmental aspects of our destiny. We are called and have a destiny to bring God's government into the earth in different ways, in different spheres, all differently according to our unique destiny, but all of us called to have government. None of us is actually supposed to be a failure in this life. We're supposed to rule and establish the kingdom. The enemy wants to rob, kill, and destroy and remove that authority from us. But when we begin to identify ourselves with our identity as the kingdom of God and with mountains and authority, then we can begin to establish God's government. All these spheres of authority are destined in the role each of us has as sons of God, so that we can bring creation back into restored order and then go into what God always intended, which is going to be an exciting journey. Now, in the Hebrew language, each letter is a picture. It wasn't developed as an audible language. It was developed as a series of pictures. Therefore, each word is a comic strip. Mountain in Hebrew, which is that Hebrew symbols, Ara is our English pronunciation of it, actually means, behold the ruler of rulers. So when we're looking at our spirit as a mountain, that is what it is, a ruler of rulers. It's a place of government and a place of authority. And we need really to understand that if we're going to administer the kingdom.
Get more from Mike when you join any tier at patreon.com/freedomark.
Personally, I've had many, many encounters with mountains. I'm actually here because of a mountain vision I had in 1993. I was completely out of it, having been poleaxed and flat on my back on the floor, and was having a vision of climbing a mountain. And literally, I was climbing on my back. It was like my physical body was engaged in this vision. And as I went up on this mountain, I was taken to various places to look out and see. And I could not remember after the vision what I saw because my mind could not engage it like my spirit did. And over the last 5 or 6 years, God has shown me what my spirit saw then, in terms of what we're doing now, in terms of heaven and the things we're doing. In 2006, I saw a vision of a mountain rising up out of the desert, and on it was this picture of this pyramid shape, which is about the 4 faces of God and the pattern of heavenly government. I didn't understand it all then, but it was in 2006 that God started to bring a revelation of this mountain that was being raised up. And it was raised up to a certain point and then stopped until this government was established on it, and then it began to go higher. The enemy wants to hinder us establishing a pattern of heaven on earth because he does not want God to occupy that, because he knows he's in serious trouble when the glory of God starts to manifest rather than the presence of God. And this is where we're going. So God is looking for a reflection of heaven in us and on earth. God is looking for the government of his kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. Judgment is coming to the church and to us on the basis of what God sees. Judgment does not mean punishment. It just means a judgment is made that says, this looks like me, this reflects me and heaven, and this doesn't. And those things that look like him and the pattern of heaven, he will come and occupy, and those things that don't, he won't. And he will actually move from. Now, Jesus talks about the authority figures on earth and how they lord it over people in Mark 10:42. Jesus says his kingdom is a totally different kingdom. He didn't come to be served, but to serve. So the dimension of the rule of God is about serving, not dominating. And often we talk about dominion and authority and power, and it might seem as if we're trying to say we're going to dominate everybody. No, we're going to love people and serve them to bring the world back into its rightful place. So everything about rulership in God's kingdom is about serving, not dictatorship. The first will be last and the last will be first. This is what this is about. It turns on its head the whole system of the world in which people want to be more highly placed than others, and they use other people to climb up, and then they stamp on them and keep them down. Because that's the world system. In the kingdom, authority is all about raising people up. So what is a reflection on earth of the heavenly mountain? If you think of that being the heavenly mountain, how does that look like on earth? It looks like that. It's not about us sitting on mountains and having everybody under us. It's us being in our position of authority and then releasing and blessing others to come into everything. What happens when you bring that together? You have the window of heaven open. You have the 4 faces of God, the order of Melchizedek being manifested on earth as it is in heaven. So there is a place where you rule. It's called a mountain and a throne. The nature of that rulership is that we're called to raise people up into their own places of authority and power, not to keep them down and subservient. That is what the Joshua generation is all about. Taking another generation into their inheritance, releasing people into their places of governmental authority and power. We're called to be that Joshua generation of mentors ready to receive the harvest that's coming, to release them into the fullness of their government on earth as it is in heaven. That is our call.
Engaging God. Get your free trial at freedomark.org/free trial.